In the wild forests, a wolf pack controls a territory of 1,000 square miles, and not a single rival pack can cross its borders. This sounds illogical. It should be impossible for a handful of animals to control such a vast territory. They need to watch every corner, guard every border, detect every violation instantly. Yet the wolf pack manages its territory with perfect discipline, as if moving with a single mind. Dr. David Meck from the University of Minnesota describes this as unprecedented territorial control among predators. Lions control savannas of 100 square miles. Tigers defend forest areas of 40 square miles, but wolves, they move systematically across 1,000 square miles. Tonight, we'll discover together how wolf packs draw invisible boundaries and how they defend them. If this unique territorial dominance fascinates you as much as it does me, like and subscribe. In the comments, write where you're watching from, what time it is there, and what surprises you most about wolves. You are the reason we keep exploring nature's secrets. Thank you for being here. First, let's note that researchers don't fully agree on the findings we'll be discussing. Some information is not definitive. Now let's take a look at how wolves manage these vast territories together. Think about your own neighborhood for a moment. You know where your area ends and where your neighbor's begins. You easily notice the streets, the signs, and the boundaries separating neighborhoods because there are visible borders, fences, signs, walls. Now imagine all of that not being there. Imagine living in a neighborhood so vast that walking from one end to the other could take days with no fences, no signs, no walls. That's the situation wolves live in every day. Wolves, like many predatory animals, live in packs, and as a pack, they claim a territory they've defined. The size of this living space varies greatly. In areas where prey is abundant, these territories shrink. For example, in places with high deer populations, a pack only controls an area of 60 to 70 square miles, roughly between 150 and 180 square kilometers. But packs living in the endless tundra forests of Alaska and Canada can dominate areas exceeding 1,000 square miles, about 2,500 square kilometers. We're talking about an area larger than many major cities, even bigger than some small countries. And wolves maintain this through planned patrols, leaving nothing to chance. What makes this territorial control impressive is this. The math doesn't seem to add up, because if you calculate the density, you'll see that in the best conditions, one wolf covers about 10 square miles. Wolves also usually live in packs of 7 to 8 individuals, so for a pack of 7 wolves, that's at least 70 square miles. But many packs control territories 5 times that size. So how do they manage such vast distances when an uninvited guest enters their territory? How do they know? The answer lies in a border marking system we've only begun to understand in recent years. Wolves generally use scent marking to mark boundaries. They mark territorial borders with feces and urine. This is a clear message to neighboring packs and wandering wolves. The alpha pair, the pack's mother and father wolves, lead this marking behavior, but every pack member contributes. When a wolf patrols along the border, it doesn't leave its scent marks randomly. Each mark is deliberately chosen to maintain the order of the boundary. As we mentioned, wolves patrol the borders, they watch them, about 2 to 3 hours a day. Adults do the patrolling and wolf pups stay in the safe zone. And along the border, roughly every 200 to 300 yards, they leave a scent mark in a noticeable spot. But weekly patrols of such vast territories create a challenge. Moving through such a large area, wolves that stop every few hundred yards to leave scent have to cover enormous distances, and they really do. Wolves spend about 35% of their time walking, traveling. They usually cover 20 to 30 miles a day, but when prey is scarce, they can travel over 100 miles in a single day. So 35% of their entire existence is dedicated to movement. Not hunting, not resting, not socializing, just moving. Their legs are made for this constant motion. Their bodies are designed for endurance rather than speed. So why do they invest so much energy in border patrol? Why don't they just settle for protecting the areas where the pack spends the most time? The reason is directly related to survival. Boundaries between packs prevent conflicts from arising in the first place. When neighboring packs accept these boundaries, the number of encounters decreases. This way, each pack can access the prey in their own territory without unnecessary tension. You might think rain or snow would immediately erase the scent, and wind would disperse it within hours, but the scent wolves leave contains special compounds that can last longer than ordinary scents. Generally, these scent marks last several weeks, so they don't need to leave scent every day, but scratch marks can last even longer. Even after rain, enough residue remains for another wolf to detect this message. This territory is occupied. What's more, the message isn't just "stay away." The chemical signature carries information about the wolf that left it, its age, sex, health status, scent information, carrying details too subtle for us to notice. A wolf approaching a scent mark doesn't just smell another dog, it reads a biological profile. It assesses whether the mark comes from a strong and healthy pack or a weak and vulnerable one, and acts accordingly. If it's a pack they might handle, they slightly push in to gauge the reaction. These tests continue if the defending wolves don't show up, otherwise they back off. The defending pack can't allow this. Every lost piece of land means fewer hunting grounds and resources. That's why they respond by showing their presence. Patrol frequency increases, scent marks are refreshed several times a day, and this often works. Wolves stay away from each other. They defend boundaries not for honor, but because it suits them. A wolf pack usually doesn't change things once they've chosen their living area. Stable boundaries take time to form, but once the lines are established, wolves are careful not to cross them. They don't want to try trespassing into other wolves' territories. For wolves, staying away from unnecessary conflicts is important. To do this, they have to remember the areas they control. This isn't just instinct. Cognitive mapping works through memory, planning, and communication working together. Researchers studying GPS-collared wolves revealed an interesting detail about patrol patterns. Wolves don't wander randomly within their territories. They follow specific routes and return to the same paths again and again. But they adjust their return times based on the last visit date. Wolves generally don't like patrolling territory edges. They concentrate more in the territory center. But if too much time has passed since the last visit, thinking that area needs checking, they head toward the borders. So if a wolf patrolled the northern boundary 6 days ago, it won't return there the next day. It focuses on areas not recently checked. This time-based decision-making process shows that wolves use a mental map that includes not just the area, but how the area changes over time. Here we see behavior requiring abstract thought. The wolf must hold a map of its territory in its mind, overlay the timing of recent patrols on it, then calculate the most suitable route for that day. While doing this, it also tracks prey movements, weather conditions, and the locations of other pack members. The mental demands of territorial control might explain why wolf brains are larger relative to body size compared to many other species. They need great processing power to manage these enormous territories. But there's a weakness in this system. It requires numbers, because a wolf pack must cover about 50% of its territory every day. A single wolf or a pair can't do enough marking to defend hundreds of square miles of territory. Imagine this: half the entire territory is traveled every day. This is only possible if a pack is large enough to divide patrol duties. A larger pack can split into smaller groups to cover more area in less time. This way they can renew border scents with less fatigue. A pack of 9 wolves can manage this vast area. But for a pack of 4 wolves, defending the same area is much harder. The smaller pack exerts more effort, covers more ground, takes more risks. When their numbers drop too low, they eventually lose part of the territory to neighbors. That's why territory size isn't fixed. It expands and contracts based on the pack's strength and prey abundance. But however the territory changes, there's a core area where the pack spends most of its time. This area is usually located at or very near the territory's exact center. A wolf pack spends up to 50% of its time here. This is where wolves feel safest. Researchers trying to understand how wolf packs manage a territory notice something over time. Packs constantly assess what's happening around them. This assessment determines when they need to be more careful and when they can continue at a calm pace. When surrounding marks intensify, packs start acting a bit more alert. Patrols slowly increase, several members move together, and scent marks are renewed more regularly. This order allows many packs to live peacefully for long periods. Each pack monitors its own area, avoids unnecessary encounters with neighbors, and maintains a simple but effective routine to keep boundaries clear. This is like a calm balance that nature establishes within itself. This system generally works smoothly. As pack members move together, they can keep their area organized and continue their daily lives. But this order depends on nature's own rhythm and the pack's strength. Surrounding resources and habitat structure can affect this rhythm. When conditions change, invisible boundaries can also shift over time. This entire order stands on the contribution of every pack member. But the truly interesting aspect of this operation is that it encompasses not just today, but the future, because every pack must pass on their knowledge and habits to the next generation. Young wolves learning this silent order is vital for the pack's long-term survival. And here, the most fascinating part of wolf life begins. The pack's young members, from the moment they're born, aren't just protected, they're also trained step by step. Silent patrols, scent marks, the territory's invisible boundaries, they're all like lessons. So how does this training happen, and how does a young wolf learn this order within a complex world? Chapter 2. Imagine a quiet clearing in the forest on a warm summer afternoon. Sunlight filters through the trees, and in the middle of an open meadow, 4 wolf pups tumble over each other on the grass. They're playing, but watch carefully. Every move they make, every jump and retreat is teaching them a skill they'll need to survive later on. We often think of education as something that happens in classrooms, but wolf pups receive one of the most comprehensive educations in the natural world, and this education begins in the forest the moment they're born. When wolf pups are born, they weigh only 1 pound and their eyes are closed. 1 pound, that's it. Helpless, blind, and deaf. A newborn wolf pup is completely dependent on its mother and pack for everything. At first, they feed only on milk from their mother. They can't see approaching danger. They can't hear their mother's warning calls. When they're about 2 weeks old, the pups can walk, and roughly a week after that, they can leave the den for the first time. When the pup's eyes finally open after about 2 weeks, the world slowly begins to take shape. Colors are still dull. Shapes blur together. But the pup can now see moving shadows, distinguish its mother's silhouette from the darkness of the cave. Hearing also develops during the same period, and pups begin to hear many new sounds around them during this process. The rustle of leaves at the cave entrance, the breathing of their siblings, and eventually the low growls of adult wolves returning from the hunt. The mother stays close to the pups in the first weeks. She almost never leaves the cave except for brief moments to drink water or relieve herself. The rest of the pack understands her duty and brings food directly to her. They leave food at the cave entrance, sometimes briefly entering to check on the pups, but mostly they leave the mother alone to focus on her newborns. Think about how much this system is built on mutual trust. The mother trusts that the pack will return from the hunt while she feeds her pups. The pack trusts that the mother will raise healthy pups and that these pups will eventually contribute to the group's life. Every individual in the pack has their own duty, and they all move forward trusting each other. Around 3 weeks old, a development occurs. The pups start eating meat, but because they're too small to hunt, adult wolves bring them meat. From the 4th week onward, the socialization period begins. The pups spend more time outside the cave. At first, they take only a few steps from the entrance, hesitant and uncertain. The world outside the cave is vast and overwhelming, but curiosity pushes them forward, and soon they're jumping and playing near the cave entrance, examining every leaf and twig. The mother wolf no longer stays with them all day. She goes hunting. During this period, pups can follow adults up to 1 mile from their den. That's when serious training begins. Play isn't just fun for wolf pups. It becomes a classroom where they learn every skill they'll need in adulthood. Let's look at how pups play. One crouches into a low position, rear end in the air, front paws on the ground. This is the play bow, which means I'm not serious, this is just play. In all canines, pups lunge gently at each other, spin together, roll around. Their mouths may be open, but their movements are gentle. This way they learn controlled lunging and contact skills during play. Parent wolves also watch the play, and sometimes they join in. But adult wolves are, of course, bigger, stronger, and faster. They could easily dominate, but they don't. Deliberately. They deliberately restrain their strength to maintain fair play. Common play behaviors include learning to bite in a controlled way, playful movements, and role reversals, where stronger pups sometimes let weaker ones catch them briefly. Pups also play with things like bones and feathers as toys. Sometimes you'll see a pup playing with a stick or small object. It grips it gently, turns it with light movements and examines it curiously. The soft sounds it makes to itself are like first attempts at behaviors it will develop later. It puts the object down, picks it up again, gives it to siblings, or hides it. These calm games help pups get to know the world and slowly learn basic skills in a safe environment. In the 8th week, a major transition happens. The pack completely abandons the cave and moves the pups to what we call a rendezvous site. The rendezvous site is usually an open area close to water and surrounded by tall grass where pups can hide in case of danger. A few adults stay here to watch over the pups, but when they go hunting, the pups are left alone. They play, communicate with each other, explore their surroundings. The pack doesn't stay at a single rendezvous site. It moves between several different areas. This adapts to prey movement and avoids problems that could arise from staying in the same place too long. Adults sometimes carry small pups distances of up to 20 kilometers from their first cave to new rendezvous sites. 20 kilometers, more than 12 miles, just to move their pups to a safer place and train them. The pup feels completely safe while dangling from its parent's mouth. The adult crosses rough terrain, passes waterways, and stays away from other packs. This journey is exhausting, but it's important for the pack's survival. At the rendezvous site, the pup's training intensifies. They now regularly eat solid meat, and their baby teeth give way to permanent teeth that can tear meat. They go on short trips with the adults. During these trips, they learn which animals are prey and which pose a threat. But some animals, interestingly, fall outside both categories, like the capybara. Almost no predator attacks them. Birds rest on their backs, monkeys play beside them. Even species that normally hunt each other coexist peacefully around the capybara. In our next journey, we'll explore this universal friendship. For now, let's return to the wolf pups. At 3 months old, pups start following adults on real hunts. They can't last long, their legs are short, their endurance limited, but they watch. They watch the adults move silently through the forest and how they choose which animal to pursue and which to leave. They see successful hunts and failures. They learn that hunting requires patience, strategy, and teamwork. The lessons aren't limited to hunting. Pups learn the pack's social structure through daily interactions. They gradually learn which adults they need to be more respectful toward and which ones they can play a bit more actively with. They learn that food belongs to the wolf who found it, that no one can touch it until that wolf decides to share. They learn that protecting the pack's territory is everyone's responsibility. When we observe how young wolves behave in different situations, we can clearly see how they use the information they've learned. They don't just act on instinct. They watch their elders, model their behavior, and learn to adapt it to new situations. Wolves communicate, cooperate, and share knowledge across generations. Older wolves, who are more experienced hunters, pass on hunting strategies and techniques to young wolves, creating a culture specific to that pack by carrying knowledge from one generation to the next. Yes, this is culture, not in the sense of human art and music, but culture nonetheless. Each pack develops slightly different hunting techniques based on the prey in its territory and strategies that have worked in the past. A pack that mainly hunts cattle uses different tactics than a pack that hunts deer. Pups acquire these techniques through observation and practice, and years later, they pass them on to their own pups. At 6 months, pups almost resemble adults, those awkward pup proportions have balanced out, their coordination has greatly improved. But they still learn, they still make mistakes, they're still dependent on the pack. When pups are 6 months old, they join larger hunts with the rest of the pack. They may not make the final move, but they contribute. They chase the deer, wearing it down by running after it. They gradually learn when to exert more effort and when to calmly conserve their energy. They discover through experience which prey are vulnerable and which are too dangerous. Mistakes happen. A young wolf might attack too early, spooking the prey before the pack positions itself. Or it hesitates at exactly the needed moment and the deer escapes. But the pack is patient. They know learning takes time, and every failed hunt teaches something valuable. Think about what this means for a young wolf. It doesn't receive clear instructions like a human student. No adult verbally explains strategy. Instead, the pup learns through observation, imitation, and experience. It tries the techniques adults use. Some work, some don't. Through trial and error, with the example of experienced pack members, the young wolf slowly develops competence. Between 7 and 8 months, most young wolves now actively participate in hunts and contribute to the pack's food supply. They're still not as skilled as adults, but they're functional hunters. They've completed the basic training they'll carry with them throughout their lives. But learning never truly ends. Adult wolves continue to improve their skills throughout their lives. They adapt to changes in prey behavior, changes in pack dynamics, the arrival of new pups, and train them. And the cycle continues like this. Knowledge flows from generation to generation, not through written records or formal lessons, but through patient demonstration, practice through play, and the deep relationships that bind wolves to each other throughout their lives. The sun sets over our summer meadow. After a day of play and learning, the pups curl up together among the tall grass and drift off to sleep. The adults rest nearby but remain alert. Tomorrow will bring new lessons, new challenges, new opportunities for these young wolves to move one step closer to becoming hunters and protectors. But the most important skill these young wolves need to learn hasn't fully developed yet. A door that allows them to notice far more than their eyes can see slowly opens. The sense of smell. And the power of this sense is many times stronger than ours. Chapter 3. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine trying to understand your surroundings using only your sense of smell. You might detect the faint aroma of coffee from the kitchen, perhaps a hint of rain through an open window. But beyond these simple scents, the world would remain largely invisible to you. For a wolf, closing its eyes changes almost nothing. The world of scent remains rich, detailed, and endlessly informative. We humans experience life primarily through vision. Our brains dedicate enormous processing power to interpreting what our eyes see. Colors, shapes, movements, depth. All of this visual information flows into our consciousness and forms our understanding of reality. But wolves live in a different sensory universe. For them, smell comes first. Inside a wolf's nose, approximately 280 million scent receptors wait to capture molecules drifting on the air. Compare this to the 5 or 6 million receptors we humans possess, and you begin to understand the difference. It's not just that wolves smell better than we do, they smell 100 times better. They inhabit a landscape of odors we cannot begin to imagine. Think about what this means. When you walk through a forest, you might notice the earthy scent of damp leaves or the sharp tang of pine. A wolf walking through that same forest detects layers upon layers of information we miss entirely. It smells the deer that passed through 3 hours ago, moving east toward water. It detects the scent trail of a rival pack's border patrol from yesterday morning. It identifies individual pack members who marked territory boundaries 2 days prior. It knows which direction the wind is blowing and adjusts its interpretation accordingly. The physical structure of a wolf's nose reflects this sensory priority. The tip of the nose forms a complex landscape of tiny ridges and creases, unique to each individual like a fingerprint. When combined with the outer edges of the nostrils, these patterns create a distinctive identification marker. But more importantly, they help channel scent molecules efficiently toward the receptors deep inside the nasal cavity. Each nostril can move independently. Watch a wolf carefully and you'll notice its nostrils flaring and shifting, sampling air from slightly different angles. This independent movement allows the wolf to determine not just that a scent exists, but precisely which direction it's coming from. The wolf doesn't need to see prey to know where it stands. The scent alone provides directional information accurate enough to guide a stalk. The olfactory region inside a wolf's nose must be folded repeatedly to fit such an enormous sensing surface into a relatively compact space. If you could unfold all those membranes and lay them flat, they would cover an area roughly 14 times larger than the equivalent structures in a human nose. Every fold contains thousands of receptors, each one capable of detecting specific molecules and sending signals to the brain. And the wolf's brain dedicates substantial resources to processing this flood of scent information. The olfactory centers occupy about the size of a fist in a wolf's brain. In humans, those same centers measure roughly the size of a pea. This difference tells us something important about evolutionary priorities. Wolves survived by refining their ability to interpret scent, dedicating neural real estate to smell in ways we never did. Some researchers have even suggested that wolves might dream in smell. While we cannot know for certain what a wolf experiences in sleep, the idea makes sense given how central scent is to their waking lives. Just as humans dream in images, perhaps wolves dream in odor patterns, replaying the day's scent trails and encounters in their sleeping minds. Let's talk about distance. Under favorable wind conditions, wolves can detect scent from nearly 2 miles away. 2 miles. That's the length of roughly 32 football fields. A caribou herd moving slowly across tundra, a dead elk lying in a distant meadow, another wolf pack marking territory on the far side of a valley. All of these become detectable long before visual contact occurs. Researchers studying Arctic wolves documented one particularly striking example. A female wolf left her den and traveled directly northwest, across featureless tundra, toward a caribou herd she couldn't possibly see. The herd was miles away, hidden by terrain and distance, yet the wolf moved purposefully in their direction, as if following a map only she could read. The researchers speculated that if humans can smell smoke from a forest fire more than 60 miles away, perhaps wolves can detect the concentrated scent of a large herd from similar distances when wind conditions align perfectly. We don't know exactly how far wolves can smell under optimal conditions, but we know the range extends far beyond anything we experience. The wolf navigates through an invisible network of scent trails, some fresh and some days old, all providing information about who passed through, when, and in which direction they traveled. Scent serves as the primary communication system within wolf packs and between rival groups. Each wolf produces a unique scent signature through specialized glands located at various points on the body. Glands near the tail, between the toes, around the eyes, and in other locations secrete pheromones, chemical messengers that carry information readable by other wolves. When wolves sniff each other, particularly around the tail area, they're not being rude. They're reading biological profiles, age, sex, health status, reproductive condition, even mood. All of this information gets encoded in scent and decoded by the receiving wolf's olfactory system. It's similar to how we might read someone's body language or facial expression, except far more detailed and accurate. The scent glands between a wolf's toes deposit signature chemicals with every step. This means wolves leave a trail wherever they walk, an invisible but information-rich record of their passage. Pack members can follow these trails to locate each other. Territory patrols can detect when rival wolves have crossed boundary lines. Even days after a wolf passes through an area, its scent remains readable to any wolf that follows. Territory marking relies heavily on this scent-based communication. When an alpha wolf lifts its leg to urinate on a tree or rock, it's not simply relieving itself. It's depositing a concentrated scent message that announces the pack's presence and claims ownership of that location. The urine contains pheromones that identify the specific wolf, convey social status within the pack, and signal to outsiders that this territory is occupied and defended. Other wolves passing through can read these marks like signposts. They know which pack left the mark, how recently it was deposited, and whether the marking wolf was confident and dominant or subordinate and uncertain. All of this information transfers through molecules too subtle for humans to detect at all. Hunting depends critically on scent detection. Wolves typically travel upwind when searching for prey, allowing air currents to carry scent toward them from ahead. When that first, faint trace of elk or deer reaches the wolf's nose, everything changes. The pack's attention focuses, movement becomes more purposeful. They've detected prey, and now the hunt begins in earnest. But wolves don't just smell that prey exists somewhere ahead. They extract detailed information from those scent molecules. The number of animals in the herd, their approximate size, which individuals might be young or old, sick or healthy, all of this becomes apparent through olfactory analysis. Blood carries a distinctive scent due to its iron content. Infection smells different from healthy tissue. Stress hormones release specific chemical signatures that signal fear or weakness. A wolf approaching a herd can identify which elk is limping, which calf has strayed too far from its mother, which bull is past its prime and slowing down. The wolves make hunting decisions based partly on what they smell, choosing targets that offer the best chance of success while minimizing risk of injury from a healthy, powerful animal fighting for its life. Wolves also use scent to mark food caches and remember where they've stored meat. After a successful hunt, if the pack cannot consume all the meat immediately, they might bury portions for later retrieval. The memory of where they cached food combines with scent trails leading back to those locations. Days or even weeks later, wolves can return to buried food by following their own scent markers and the distinctive smell of cached meat. There's another behavior related to scent that puzzles researchers: scent rolling. Wolves sometimes discover something with a strong odor, a rotting carcass, feces from another animal, even unusual substances like motor oil or perfume, and deliberately roll in it. They lower their heads and shoulders first, then twist and rub to coat their fur with the scent. Why do they do this? Several theories exist. One suggests that wolves want to familiarize themselves and their pack with new scents they encounter. By carrying the odor back to the pack, they bring information about what exists in their environment. Another theory proposes that scent rolling might help mask the wolf's own scent, making it harder for prey to detect them approaching. A third possibility is that scent rolling serves a social function, triggering interactions with pack members who investigate the new smell. The true explanation might involve all these factors or something else entirely, but the behavior itself demonstrates how central scent is to a wolf's relationship with its environment. We find smells interesting or unpleasant. Wolves find them informative enough to wear. The difference between how we experience smell and how wolves experience it extends to every aspect of daily life. When we enter a room, we might notice if food is cooking or if someone is wearing cologne. A wolf entering that same space would detect far more. Who has been in the room recently, what they ate, their stress levels, whether they're sick, how long ago they left. The room tells a story through scent, and the wolf reads that story effortlessly. This is why wolves navigate so confidently in darkness. Night doesn't limit them the way it limits us. Their sense of smell continues operating at full capacity regardless of light conditions. The world of scent never goes dark. Prey doesn't become invisible. Territory boundaries don't disappear. Pack members remain locatable. Everything that matters to wolf survival stays perceptible through smell. Think about what it would mean to live this way. Your primary understanding of reality would come not from what you see, but from what you smell. You would know your pack members by their unique scents before you recognized their appearances. You would understand your territory through the network of scent markers you've deposited and refreshed constantly. You would find food by following odor trails rather than searching visually. You would assess strangers, evaluate threats, make crucial decisions, all based primarily on information your nose delivers to your brain. This is the sensory world of the wolf. Rich beyond our comprehension, detailed in ways we can barely imagine, and perfectly suited to the life these animals lead. When we watch wolves and try to understand their behavior, we must remember that they're responding to information we cannot perceive. They're making decisions based on data our senses cannot access. The wolf's 100 times stronger sense of smell isn't just a curiosity or an impressive statistic. It's a fundamental reshaping of how an animal perceives and interacts with the world. And it reminds us that reality itself can look, or smell, very different depending on which senses evolution has chosen to emphasize. Chapter 4. The year turns slowly for wolves. Each season brings its own rhythm, and the pack flows with those changes like water, following the contours of land. In spring, the world begins to wake. Snow melts gradually, revealing ground that's been hidden for months. The air warms, and with that warmth, comes the first stirrings of new life throughout the forest. For wolf packs, spring centers around one thing: the pups. Somewhere deep in a den, the breeding female has given birth. The pups are blind, deaf, helpless. She stays with them constantly during these first weeks, nursing them, keeping them warm. The rest of the pack understands their role. They hunt and bring food back for her. They patrol the territory boundaries with extra diligence, knowing that vulnerable pups require protection. As the days lengthen, the pups grow stronger. Their eyes open, they begin to hear the world around them. Soon they venture outside the den entrance, taking their first tentative steps into sunlight. The pack watches over them patiently, tolerating their clumsy play, their endless energy, their demands for attention and food. Spring is also when wolves shed their heavy winter coats. The thick undercoat that kept them warm through months of freezing temperatures begins to come loose. Wolves scratch against trees, roll in the grass, rub against rocks. Slowly, the dense fur releases, leaving behind a lighter summer coat more suited to warmer weather. This shedding takes time, sometimes 3 weeks or more, and during that period, wolves can look ragged, their fur coming out in patches and clumps. But eventually the transition completes. The summer coat emerges, shorter, sleeker, less bulky. Wolves look leaner in summer, their bodies more clearly defined, without all that insulating fluff. They move through the forest with less visible bulk, though their strength remains unchanged. Summer brings abundance. Prey animals are everywhere. Elk calves learn to walk. Deer fawns hide in tall grass. The forest fills with life, and wolves have many opportunities to hunt. The pack doesn't need to travel as far or work as hard to find food during these months. They can afford to be selective, choosing easier targets, conserving energy. The pups continue their education throughout summer. They move from the den to rendezvous sites, open areas where they can play and explore under the watchful eyes of adults. They learn to eat solid meat. They practice hunting skills on insects and small rodents. They test boundaries, discover limits, begin to understand their place within the pack's social structure. For adult wolves, summer is perhaps the easiest season. Food is plentiful, the weather is comfortable, days are long, providing extended time for hunting and other activities. The pack can relax somewhat, spending more time resting in shaded areas during the heat of afternoon, becoming more active during cooler morning and evening hours. We should note that wolves remain crepuscular even in summer, most active at dawn and dusk. The middle of the day often finds them resting, digesting, sleeping. They conserve energy when conditions are less favorable for hunting, then become alert and active when prey animals are also moving and feeding. As summer progresses into fall, changes begin again. The air grows cooler, days shorten noticeably. Wolves respond to these environmental cues by preparing for winter. Their bodies begin growing new undercoats beneath the summer fur. Slowly, the insulating layer thickens. The transformation happens gradually, driven by hormones responding to decreasing daylight rather than temperature itself. Fall is also a time of intensive hunting. Wolves instinctively understand that winter will be harder, that food will become scarce, that they'll need reserves of fat to survive lean periods. They hunt more frequently in autumn, Feeding heavily whenever possible, their bodies store this extra nutrition, building up resources that will sustain them when prey becomes difficult to find. Young wolves experience their first autumn with a mix of curiosity and instinct. They've never seen their breath fog in cold air. They've never felt frost forming on grass overnight. Yet something in them recognizes what's coming. They participate eagerly in the increased hunting activity, learning from experienced pack members how to prepare for winter's challenges. The pack may adjust its territory during fall, focusing more attention on areas where prey will concentrate during winter months. They strengthen social bonds through increased group howling and play sessions. The hierarchy becomes more clearly defined as wolves establish the social order that will carry them through the difficult season ahead. By the time winter arrives fully, wolves are ready. Their coats have transformed completely. The outer guard hairs provide water resistance and protection from wind. Beneath them, the dense undercoat creates insulation so effective that snow doesn't melt when it lands on a wolf's fur. No body heat escapes through that remarkable coat. Wolves can sleep comfortably in temperatures far below zero, curled into balls with their long tails wrapped over their noses. That tail position serves a specific purpose. When the wolf exhales, warm air passes over its feet and nose before dispersing. When it inhales, the air filters through the tail fur and gets warmed by the exhaled breath before entering the lungs. It's a simple but elegant system for conserving heat during the coldest nights. Winter changes everything about how wolves live. Prey animals migrate to lower elevations or gather in areas with less snow. Wolves must follow these movements, traveling greater distances to find food. Hunting becomes more difficult. Deep snow can help or hinder depending on conditions. Sometimes it slows prey more than it slows wolves. Other times it makes travel exhausting for everyone. The pack moves in single file during winter, following trails broken by the lead wolf. This formation conserves energy for wolves following behind. They travel through already compacted snow rather than breaking their own trail. The alpha typically leads, with other adults following in order of rank, and pups bringing up the rear. They use game trails, frozen waterways, any path that offers easier passage through snow-covered landscape. Winter hunting requires patience and strategy. Wolves may spend days tracking a herd before finding the right opportunity to strike. They must balance energy expenditure against potential gain. A long chase through deep snow costs tremendous calories. If the hunt fails, those calories are wasted. Wolves become more conservative in winter, choosing their moments carefully. Between hunts, wolves rest extensively. They find sheltered areas, dense forest, rocky overhangs, anywhere that offers some protection from wind. They curl up and sleep, conserving energy until the next hunting opportunity presents itself. Long periods of inactivity are normal in winter. The fat reserves built during fall help sustain them through these quiet times. Pups experience their first winter with determination. They've grown significantly since spring. By this time, they weigh 40 or 50 pounds, though they won't reach full size for months more. They travel with the pack on winter hunts, learning how different everything becomes when the world fills with snow. They discover which surfaces provide good footing and which hide treacherous ice. They learn to read snow conditions, to understand how depth and density affect movement. Some young wolves see snow for the first time in late autumn or early winter. Their initial reaction is often exuberant play, leaping through drifts, rolling in fresh powder, biting at snowflakes. But they quickly adapt to winter's realities, understanding that this white substance will define their world for months to come. As winter deepens, another change approaches. In late December or early January, the breeding female enters heat. The alpha pair begins courtship behaviors, strengthening their bond through increased time together, gentle play, mutual grooming. Within days, they'll mate, setting in motion the cycle that will bring new pups in spring. The pack accepts these changes without disruption. Life continues its seasonal rhythm, hunting, traveling, resting, surviving. The wolves don't count days or anticipate specific dates. They simply exist within each season, responding to its demands, adapting their behavior to match environmental conditions. Winter lasts long in northern territories. Months pass slowly. The pack's territory looks entirely different under snow. Landmarks disappear. Boundaries become harder to maintain. But wolves navigate successfully through memory, scent marking, and constant vigilance. They know their range intimately in all seasons, adjusting their understanding as snow transforms familiar landscapes into new configurations. Eventually, subtle signs announce winter's weakening grip. Days lengthen slightly. The angle of sunlight changes. Snow melts begin, then freeze again overnight, creating crusts that change how wolves travel. These early hints of spring don't mean winter has ended. That takes time yet, but the wolves recognize the beginning of transition. Their bodies start preparing for the next seasonal shift, even while winter still holds the land. And so the cycle continues year after year, generation after generation. Wolves have lived through countless seasonal changes, adapting to each one, surviving through behavioral flexibility and physical resilience. They don't fight the seasons. They flow with them, accepting what each period brings, using it rather than resisting it. This is the rhythm that shapes wolf life. Spring's new beginnings, summer's abundance, fall's preparation, winter's endurance. Each season demands different things from the pack, and each season finds them ready to meet those demands. Chapter 5. Sleep comes naturally to wolves, though perhaps not in the way we might expect. They rest when their bodies tell them to rest. They sleep where shelter presents itself. And they do this throughout their vast territories with a flexibility that allows them to thrive across diverse landscapes. A wolf sleeps roughly 4 to 10 hours each day, depending on circumstances. This might seem like a modest amount, but wolves burn calories at extraordinary rates, about 70% more than similar-sized animals. After a successful hunt and a large meal, they need time to digest and metabolize all that protein and fat. Sleep provides that recovery period. Interestingly, wolves spend about 30% of their time resting or sleeping. This isn't continuous sleep, but rather a pattern of rest periods scattered throughout the day and night. They doze, wake, move to a different location, doze again. Their sleep follows the rhythms of their lifestyle rather than any fixed schedule. We should understand that wolves are crepuscular creatures. They become most active during dawn and dusk, when many prey animals also move and feed. Midday often finds them resting, and the middle of the night may bring more rest as well. They adjust this pattern based on what's happening around them. The availability of prey, the need to patrol territory, the presence of threats. Where do wolves choose to sleep? The answer varies considerably depending on season, weather, and what's available in their territory. During most of the year, adult wolves don't require enclosed shelter. Their coats provide remarkable insulation. They can sleep comfortably on snow, on frozen ground, in open meadows. The elements that would quickly threaten a human cause wolves little concern. When wolves do seek shelter, they prefer locations that offer some concealment and protection. During daytime rest periods, they often choose dense forest areas with thick understory vegetation. These spots provide cover from above and sides, making the resting wolf less visible to potential threats or disturbances. The concealment matters more during daylight hours when visibility is high. At night, wolves sometimes rest in more open areas. Darkness itself provides concealment, so the need for dense vegetation decreases. An open hillside or meadow edge might serve perfectly well for a few hours of sleep under starlight. The wolf simply curls up, wraps its tail over its nose to warm inhaled air, and settles into rest. Wolves select resting sites based on several factors beyond just weather protection. They avoid areas too close to human settlements. Roads with heavy traffic get bypassed in favor of quieter zones. Even within their territories, wolves show preferences for resting far from the busiest forest roads and paths. This behavior reduces the chance of disturbance and helps them maintain the peace necessary for quality rest. The pack's social structure influences sleeping arrangements in subtle ways. The alpha pair often rests in positions that allow them to monitor the group. They might sleep slightly apart from the others or choose elevated spots that offer better sight lines. Other pack members tend to sleep closer together, sometimes huddled for warmth during cold weather. These arrangements aren't rigidly enforced but emerge naturally from each wolf's role and relationships within the group. Young wolves and subordinate members often position themselves near more dominant wolves during rest periods. This proximity offers psychological security as much as physical warmth. The comfort of sleeping near trusted pack members appears to matter to wolves, just as it might matter to humans. Rest becomes easier when you're surrounded by family. Dens represent a special category of resting places used primarily during one specific period, when raising young pups. Adult wolves without pups rarely use dens. Their coats make shelter unnecessary for personal comfort. But newborn pups are different. They need the protection and temperature control that a den provides during their first vulnerable weeks. Wolves choose den sites carefully. The breeding female typically makes the selection weeks before giving birth. She looks for locations that offer security, proper drainage, and proximity to water. Many dens are renovated burrows originally dug by other animals, foxes, badgers, or previous wolf generations. Some dens utilize natural caves or spaces beneath rock formations. In areas where digging is feasible, wolves may excavate their own dens or expand existing holes to proper size. A good den has a narrow entrance that predators cannot easily pass through. The entrance typically leads to a tunnel which opens into a slightly larger chamber where the mother and pups will spend their time. The chamber needs to be big enough for the mother and her litter, but not so large that it becomes difficult to keep warm. Temperature regulation matters enormously for tiny pups who cannot yet control their own body heat. Wolves sometimes use the same den year after year if it continues to meet their needs. Other times, they select new locations, responding to changes in territory boundaries, prey distribution, or the condition of previous dens. Flexibility in den selection allows wolves to adapt to shifting circumstances rather than becoming attached to specific sites. After pups reach about 8 to 10 weeks old, the pack abandons the den entirely. They move to rendezvous sites, open areas where pups can play and explore while remaining relatively safe. These sites don't offer the same enclosed shelter as dens, but they provide tall grass or scattered vegetation where pups can hide if danger approaches. The pack may use several different rendezvous sites throughout summer, moving when conditions suggest a change would benefit the group. Between hunts and patrols, adult wolves rest wherever they happen to be when fatigue sets in. A sheltered spot beneath an evergreen tree provides adequate comfort. A depression in the ground offers slight protection from wind. A sunny patch on south-facing slope might be perfect on a cold afternoon, allowing the wolf to absorb warmth while resting. These temporary resting spots don't require any preparation or special features. The wolf simply stops, lies down, and sleeps. Wolves experience different stages of sleep, including REM sleep, where dreaming occurs. Their longest sleep stage tends to be REM, and older wolves experience less deep sleep than younger ones, a pattern familiar to many species, including humans. While sleeping, a wolf may twitch, whimper softly, or move its paws as if running. These movements suggest active dreaming, though we can only speculate about what wolves dream. The position a wolf assumes while sleeping reveals something about temperature and comfort level. In cold weather, wolves curl into tight balls, tucking their noses under their tails and wrapping themselves as compactly as possible. This position minimizes exposed surface area and conserves body heat. In warmer weather, wolves sprawl out more, sometimes lying on their sides with legs extended. The increased surface area helps them dissipate excess heat and stay cool during rest. Wolves don't require complete silence or darkness to sleep. They rest successfully even when pack members move nearby or when forest sounds continue around them. Their sleep must be somewhat lighter than deep human slumber, allowing them to wake quickly if circumstances demand alertness. A wolf cannot afford to sleep so deeply that it misses warning signs of danger or important opportunities. Throughout different seasons, sleeping patterns adjust subtly. Winter brings longer rest periods between hunts when food is scarce and energy conservation becomes crucial. Spring and summer, with more abundant prey and longer days, may feature shorter but more frequent rest periods. The wolves flow with these seasonal changes without apparent difficulty, their bodies responding naturally to environmental cues. In territories shared with humans, wolves have learned to adjust their sleeping schedules to minimize encounters. They may become more nocturnal, resting during daylight hours when human activity peaks and becoming active after dark when fewer people move through the forest. This adaptation allows wolves to coexist in landscapes where human presence might otherwise create constant stress. The adaptability wolves show in their resting behavior reflects their broader capacity to thrive in varied environments. From Arctic tundra to temperate forests, from mountainous terrain to relatively flat grasslands, wolves find ways to rest comfortably. They don't require specific conditions or particular structures. They need only safety from immediate threats and a place to lie down. This simplicity in requirements serves wolves well. Unlike species dependent on specific den types or very particular shelter conditions, wolves can establish territories almost anywhere prey animals exist in sufficient numbers. Their sleeping flexibility contributes directly to their success as a species across such a wide geographic range. As evening settles across wolf country, pack members begin finding their resting spots for the night. They don't all sleep simultaneously. Some remain alert while others doze. This staggered rest pattern provides continuous monitoring of the territory even during hours when the pack generally remains still. Safety comes through collective vigilance, maintained even as individual wolves rest. The moon rises, stars emerge, forest sounds shift from day creatures to night creatures, and somewhere among the trees or meadows or rocky slopes, wolves sleep peacefully, their bodies recovering from the day's activities, preparing for whatever tomorrow brings. Chapter 6. Food arrives irregularly in a wolf's life. Some days bring abundance, other days bring nothing at all, and wolves have adapted their bodies and behaviors to accommodate this uncertainty with remarkable patience. A successful hunt means meat, sometimes enormous quantities of it. A single adult wolf can consume up to 20 pounds of food in one sitting. That's roughly equivalent to a human eating 80 hamburgers at once. The wolf's stomach expands to hold this massive intake, and digestion begins immediately, breaking down protein and fat into energy and nutrients the body needs. But we should understand that wolves don't eat 20 pounds every day. They eat 20 pounds when opportunity allows, then they fast. Their entire digestive system evolved around this feast and famine pattern rather than the regular meal schedule many animals require. Think about how different this is from the way we typically eat. We become uncomfortable if we miss a single meal. Wolves routinely go 5 days without food, sometimes 10 days or even longer during particularly difficult periods. Their bodies manage this deprivation through metabolic adjustments that slow energy consumption and draw on fat reserves built during better times. When food is plentiful, wolves feed heavily. After bringing down a large elk, the pack gathers around the carcass. They eat their fill, resting briefly, then return to eat more. This pattern continues over hours. They're not gorging out of greed, but rather storing energy against future scarcity. Every pound of meat consumed now represents calories they won't need to hunt for tomorrow or the next day. The digestive process for such large meals takes considerable time. This is partly why wolves spend so much of their day resting after a successful hunt. Their stomachs are working, acids breaking down tissue, intestines absorbing nutrients. The body requires rest to manage this internal processing efficiently. Sleep becomes both recovery and practical necessity. Between major meals, wolves may catch smaller prey, a rabbit, a beaver, ground squirrels. These smaller animals don't provide enough calories to sustain a wolf long term, but they offer supplemental nutrition that helps bridge the gaps between larger kills. Young wolves especially benefit from practicing hunting skills on these more manageable targets. During summer months, wolves sometimes eat berries and other vegetation. These plant foods don't form a significant part of their diet, but wolves seem to recognize their value. The fruits provide vitamins and fiber that aid digestion. Perhaps wolves eat them simply because they taste good. We can't know for certain, but the behavior appears across many wolf populations. The seasonal availability of prey influences eating patterns significantly. Spring and summer typically bring easier hunting. Young ungulates haven't yet developed the speed and awareness of adults. Prey animals are spread across the landscape rather than concentrated in defensive herds. Wolves eat more regularly during these months, building up the physical condition they'll need for harder times ahead. Fall hunting intensifies as wolves instinctively prepare for winter. They feed heavily whenever possible, accumulating fat reserves throughout their bodies. This stored energy becomes crucial during winter when prey is scarcer, hunting success rates drop, and every calorie expended in a failed chase represents energy that cannot be easily replaced. Winter changes everything about food acquisition. Deep snow may help or hinder depending on conditions and prey species. Elk and deer congregate in specific areas, making them easier to locate, but also more alert and defensive. The cold increases every animal's caloric needs, while simultaneously making food harder to obtain. Wolves must calculate carefully: is pursuing this prey worth the energy expenditure given the likelihood of success? During lean periods, wolves become more conservative in their hunting choices. They target the most vulnerable individuals rather than taking chances on healthy, strong prey that might escape after a long, exhausting chase. They rely more heavily on their ability to assess which animal in a herd presents the best opportunity for success with minimal energy investment. When days pass without food, wolves grow noticeably thinner. They may lose 8 to 10% of their body weight during extended fasting periods. This weight loss isn't immediately dangerous. Wolves evolve to tolerate it, but it does affect their hunting efficiency. Weaker wolves tire more quickly during chases. The pack's overall effectiveness declines as hunger deepens. Eventually, of course, a hunt succeeds. The pack feeds. Within a day or two of eating well, wolves regain most of the weight they lost. Their bodies rapidly convert the consumed meat back into energy reserves and physical strength. This remarkable recovery ability allows wolves to survive the boom and bust cycle that defines their relationship with food. Pups require steadier nutrition than adults. Their growing bodies cannot tolerate extended fasting the way mature wolves can. This is why pack members work so hard to keep pups fed, even when adult wolves themselves are hungry. The regurgitation of partially digested meat serves this purpose. It provides pups with more regular meals than the unpredictable hunting success rate would otherwise allow. As pups mature into juveniles and then adults, their metabolisms adjust to the feast-famine pattern. Their stomachs develop the capacity to hold large quantities of food. Their digestive systems become more efficient at extracting and storing nutrients. Their bodies learn to slow metabolism during fasting periods and accelerate it when food becomes available again. The pack's social structure ensures that all members eat eventually, though not always equally. After a kill, dominant wolves typically feed first, but this isn't an absolute rule. Pups often receive priority access to food regardless of hierarchy. Injured or sick wolves may be allowed to feed before they would normally get their turn. The pack seems to understand that everyone's survival depends on keeping all members functional. Food sharing through regurgitation continues even with older pack members. If one wolf is injured or ill and cannot travel to a kill site, others will feed heavily, then return to regurgitate food. for the one who couldn't participate in the meal. This behavior goes beyond simple parental care of pups. It reflects genuine cooperation and concern for pack welfare. Wolves don't store food through caching as much as some other predators do. They may bury portions of a large kill if they cannot consume everything immediately, returning later to retrieve these cached meals. But much of a large kill gets consumed fairly quickly by the pack working together. What doesn't get eaten by wolves typically feeds scavengers, ravens, eagles, smaller carnivores, creating an entire ecosystem around the wolves' hunting success. The irregular eating pattern means wolves must remain opportunistic. They cannot afford to pass up chances for food, even when they've recently eaten well. Tomorrow's hunting might fail. Next week might bring no success at all. So when opportunity presents itself, wolves feed. Their bodies have learned not to refuse calories when they are available. This relationship with food shapes many other aspects of wolf behavior. The extensive traveling they do across their territories is largely about locating prey. The careful territory maintenance ensures they have exclusive access to the prey animals within their range. The pack structure itself evolved partly to enable hunting success on large, dangerous prey that single wolves couldn't bring down efficiently. Even sleep patterns connect to feeding. After a large meal, wolves rest extensively, allowing digestion to proceed. During scarce periods, they might sleep more to conserve energy, their bodies entering a low power mode that extends the time they can survive on diminishing reserves. Or they might sleep less, spending more time traveling and searching depending on conditions and desperation. The wolf's stomach acids are exceptionally strong, capable of dissolving bone and digesting materials that would cause problems for many other carnivores. This powerful digestion allows wolves to extract maximum nutrition from every part of their prey, wasting almost nothing. Bones, hide, organs all contribute to the wolf's nutritional intake. From the outside, watching wolves hunt and eat can seem harsh. But from the wolf's perspective, it's simply life. They don't agonize over the ethics of eating meat. They don't feel guilt about taking down prey. They exist within a system where they must eat to survive, and the cycle of predator and prey has operated this way for thousands of generations. It works because both predators and prey evolved together, each shaping the other's adaptations over evolutionary time. As night deepens and digestion continues, a well-fed wolf rests contentedly. Its stomach full, its body working to convert that meal into energy and tissue. It has no concerns about tomorrow's food. Tomorrow will bring what it brings. For now, there is rest. There is warmth from pack members sleeping nearby, and there is the simple satisfaction of having eaten well. Chapter 7. Snow falls softly in the forest. Morning light filters through bare branches, and there, pressed into fresh powder, a line of tracks stretches away into the trees, 4 inches across, 4.5 inches long, the unmistakable signature of a wolf passing through during the night. A wolf's paw is larger than you might expect, larger than any domestic dog except perhaps a few of the very biggest breeds. When a wolf steps, its weight presses down through that broad paw, and the impression it leaves tells a story to anyone who knows how to read it. 4 toes show clearly in each print. The 2 middle toes sit slightly ahead of the outer toes, creating a symmetrical pattern. At the tip of each toe, a claw mark appears, small indentations that extend forward from the toe pads. These claws don't retract like a cat's. They're always there, always visible, always ready to grip terrain as the wolf moves. Paw pads create the main body of the print. A large central pad sits behind the toes, and this pad has a distinctive shape. On the front paw, it curves slightly inward at the top. On the hind paw, it's flatter, more rectangular. These subtle differences help trackers distinguish front prints from rear prints when following a trail. Wolves walk with purpose. Their tracks form almost perfectly straight lines across the landscape. Unlike a domestic dog, which might wander here and there, sniffing at interesting scents, investigating random bushes, a wolf travels efficiently. It knows where it's going, it moves in that direction. The tracks reflect this purposeful travel, a long line of print, each one precisely placed. When a wolf trots, its most common gait, something interesting happens with the tracks. The rear paw lands almost exactly where the front paw lifted off. This creates what trackers call direct registration. Instead of seeing 4 separate prints from 4 separate feet, you see paired prints, the hind foot covering most of the front foot's impression. This efficient movement pattern conserves energy. The wolf doesn't waste motion, it doesn't waste space. Every step serves a purpose. The distance between prints tells us something too. A walking wolf leaves prints about 2 feet apart. A trotting wolf stretches that to nearly 5 feet between each set of paired tracks. That's a remarkable stride length, possible only because of the wolf's long legs and efficient movement style. Mile after mile, the tracks continue in their straight line, testimony to the distances wolves travel each day. In deep snow, tracking becomes more challenging but also more revealing. Wolves traveling through powder often move single file. The lead wolf breaks trail, and each wolf behind steps precisely into the tracks already made. This creates a packed pathway through snow that might otherwise be exhausting to navigate. The packed trail reveals itself as deeper impressions, sometimes looking deceptively like the tracks of just 1 or 2 wolves when an entire pack has passed through. Sometimes the tracks tell us what the wolf was doing. Scattered prints around a particular area might indicate the wolf paused to investigate something, perhaps scent marking, perhaps examining another animal's trail. Tracks that suddenly shift from a straight line to a zigzag pattern suggest the wolf detected prey and began hunting. Places where prints cluster together and the snow is disturbed might mark rest spots where wolves bedded down briefly during their travels. The size of the print varies somewhat depending on the individual wolf. A large adult male in Alaska might leave prints approaching 5 inches long. A smaller female or a younger wolf might leave tracks closer to 3.5 inches. But even these smaller prints remain noticeably larger than coyote tracks, which rarely exceed 3 inches. Distinguishing wolf tracks from large dog tracks requires attention to details beyond just size. Wolf prints appear more symmetrical, the toes align more precisely, the overall shape looks more purposeful, more deliberate. Dog prints often show slightly splayed toes or claws angled sideways. Wolf prints remain tidy, controlled, efficient, just like the animal that made them. In mud, tracks show different details than in snow. The weight of the wolf presses deeper into soft mud, and sometimes you can see the texture of the paw pads. The the rough surface that provides grip on various terrain. In very wet mud, the toes might splay slightly as the wolf adjusts its weight distribution for better stability. On hard ground, tracks become nearly invisible to the casual observer, but trackers can still follow a wolf by looking for small signs: a scuff mark on a rock, displaced pine needles, a slight depression in hard-packed soil. Experienced trackers can follow wolves across terrain that seems to show no tracks at all, reading the landscape for tiny clues most people would never notice. The tracks remain visible for different lengths of time depending on conditions. In protected snow under thick evergreens, a track might last weeks, slowly softening as temperature fluctuations melt and refreeze the snow around its edges. On an exposed hillside where wind blows constantly, tracks might disappear within hours, filled in by drifting snow. In mud near water, tracks can harden into permanent impressions that last until rain or flooding erases them. Following a wolf's trail across miles of wilderness creates a connection across time. The wolf passed this way hours ago, perhaps days ago, but the tracks remain, a record of its journey. You can see where it paused at a creek to drink, where it investigated a scent on the wind, where it met another wolf and the two sets of tracks merged into one trail. These moments, preserved in snow or mud, offer glimpses into the private life of an animal we rarely see directly. Young wolves leave smaller tracks, of course, but their behavior shows in the trail pattern too. Pup tracks wander more. They show playfulness, sudden jumps, circling patterns, evidence of romping and chasing siblings. As wolves mature, their trails become more purposeful, more direct. The tracks of a 3-year-old wolf moving through its territory show none of the meandering curiosity of a 6-month-old pup still learning about the world. During winter, when tracking is easiest, researchers use prints to census wolf populations. They follow trails, noting where packs split up or come together, counting individual wolves based on slightly different print sizes, mapping territories by tracking where wolves concentrate their scent-marking activities. The tracks provide data about wolf movements, pack sizes, territory boundaries, information difficult to gather through direct observation of these elusive animals. The 4-inch print in the snow is more than just a mark left behind. It's communication, information, a story written in the universal language of tracks and trails. Every wolf that passes leaves this record. Every pack creates a network of trails crisscrossing their territory. And for those who know how to read these signs, the wilderness speaks clearly about who lives here, where they travel, and how they move through the landscape. Night comes. More snow begins to fall. And somewhere in the darkness, a wolf moves through the forest, each step pressing a fresh print into new powder. By morning, another line of tracks will stretch across the hillside, waiting for someone to find them and read the story they tell. The tracks cross frozen streams where ice preserves each detail. They climb steep slopes where the wolf's claws dug in for purchase. They traverse meadows in long, straight lines that speak of confidence and purpose. Each print is a moment frozen in time, a brief contact between paw and earth that leaves evidence of passage. In spring, as snow melts, the tracks begin to disappear. Water fills the depressions, mud softens and slumps. The clear prints of winter become ambiguous shadows. But wolves continue to travel, continue to leave their marks, even when those marks fade quickly in the changing season. Summer brings different tracking challenges. Dry ground holds little impression. Rocky terrain shows nothing, but along rivers and near water sources, mud still captures prints. These summer tracks often appear different from winter tracks, sometimes smaller looking because the toes don't splay without snow's cushioning effect, sometimes distorted by the wolf's efforts to maintain grip on slippery mud. The autumn rains create perfect tracking conditions again. Soft ground yields easily to the wolf's weight. Each print shows clearly, and the fresher the track, the sharper its edges. Old tracks have soft, rounded edges. Recent tracks show crisp definition. An experienced tracker can estimate how long ago a wolf passed by simply examining the sharpness of the print's edges, and so the cycle continues. Seasons change, wolves travel, tracks appear and fade. The wilderness keeps its records in snow and mud and soft earth. And those records remain, waiting silently for anyone patient enough to stop, look down, and read what the wolves have written across the landscape with their steady, purposeful passage. Chapter 8. Watch a wolf standing quietly in morning light. Its ears point forward, relaxed. Its tail hangs loosely behind, the body neither tense nor slumped. This is a wolf at peace, communicating calm to anyone who understands the language. Wolves speak constantly without making a sound. Every position of the tail carries meaning. Every angle of the ears sends a message. The way a wolf holds its body tells other wolves exactly what it's feeling, what it intends, where it stands within the pack's quiet hierarchy. The tail tells the clearest stories. A high tail, held almost vertical, announces confidence and status. The breeding pair moves through their territory this way, tails up, declaring their position without aggression, simply stating what everyone already knows. They lead, the others follow. The tail makes this visible. Lower the tail slightly and the message softens. Still confident, but less formal. A wolf moving comfortably through familiar ground, at ease with its surroundings, carries the tail at a gentle horizontal, not challenging anyone, not submitting either, simply existing in balanced middle ground. Drop the tail further and submission appears. A younger wolf approaching an older one will lower its tail, not tucked completely, just lowered, showing respect without fear. The gesture says, I recognize your place, I'm not challenging, we're fine. And usually they are fine. The older wolf acknowledges with a glance, and both go about their business. Tuck the tail completely between the legs, and you're watching genuine submission or fear. The wolf makes itself smaller this way, less threatening, hoping to avoid conflict. This tucked position appears when a wolf has done something wrong by pack standards, or when facing a much more dominant animal, or simply when afraid. The tail curled beneath speaks of vulnerability, but tails do more than indicate status. A wagging tail in a wolf means something similar to what it means in your family dog. Friendliness, pleasure, excitement about something positive. Wolves wag their tails during greetings, during play, when the pack gathers before a hunt. The motion itself carries happiness through wordless gesture. A completely stiff tail, held horizontal and unmoving, tells a different story. This is focus. Perhaps the wolf has detected prey and is preparing to stalk. Perhaps it's assessing a threat. The stiff tail says, I'm concentrating fully on something that matters. Other wolves, seeing this tail position, become alert themselves, reading the tension and responding appropriately. Ears work together with tails to create complete messages. Forward-pointing ears suggest interest or confidence. The wolf is engaged with whatever sits ahead of it. Combining forward ears with a raised tail creates an unmistakable image of dominance, a wolf fully confident in its status, paying attention, ready to maintain its position if necessary. Flatten those same ears back against the head and the meaning reverses entirely. Ears pinned back signal submission or fear, especially when combined with that tucked tail. The wolf wants to appear smaller, less threatening, hoping to diffuse any tension before it becomes dangerous. Ears positioned to the side, neither forward nor back, suggest a relaxed state. The wolf isn't particularly focused on anything specific. It's simply present, calm, comfortable. This neutral ear position appears most often during ordinary pack life, resting together, traveling between locations, existing without drama or immediate concerns. The face itself speaks volumes. A relaxed wolf has a smooth, open expression. The mouth might hang slightly open. The eyes look soft rather than hard. There's no tension in the facial muscles. This wolf isn't worried about anything at the moment. Contrast that with an agitated or threatening wolf. The lips pull back, exposing teeth, not necessarily in preparation to bite, but as warning, I'm serious, back away. The eyes become fixed, staring hard rather than glancing casually. The entire face tightens into an expression that needs no translation across species. Any animal recognizing threat patterns would understand this face. Body posture completes the language. A dominant wolf stands tall, sometimes seeming to rise up on its toes to appear even larger. The legs stay straight and stiff. The whole body projects upward, taking space, refusing to shrink. Combined with raised tail and forward ears, this posture broadcasts unmistakable authority. The opposite appears in submissive wolves. They crouch, lowering their bodies toward the ground. Sometimes they crawl forward rather than walk, moving with a slinking gait that makes them seem smaller than they are. This lowered position, especially paired with tucked tail and flattened ears, shows complete deference. There's a particular gesture that appears during greetings and submission. A younger or lower-ranking wolf approaches a more dominant one with lowered posture, then licks the dominant wolf's muzzle. This muzzle-licking behavior echoes puppy behavior. Pups lick their parents' mouths to trigger regurgitation of food. Adult wolves retain this gesture as a sign of respect and submission. The dominant wolf typically accepts these licks calmly, allowing the greeting to proceed. Sometimes a submissive wolf goes further, rolling completely onto its back and exposing its belly. This is the most vulnerable position possible. The wolf presents its throat, its stomach, all its vital areas to the dominant wolf without defense. This passive submission says, I'm helpless before you. I'm not a threat. I accept your authority completely. The dominant wolf rarely does anything except stand over the submissive one for a moment. Acknowledging the gesture then allows the other to rise. Play has its own body language. When a wolf wants to play, it performs what's called a play bow, lowering the front half of its body while keeping the rear half elevated. The tail wags, the face stays relaxed. This position clearly signals what comes next isn't serious, we're just having fun. Other wolves recognize this invitation and often respond with their own play bows before the game begins. During play, wolves might bare their teeth, growl, even wrestle roughly. But the play face and play bow established the context beforehand. Everyone understands this is play, not genuine conflict. The wolves self-handicap during these games. Stronger wolves don't use their full strength, allowing smaller or younger wolves to win sometimes. This gentle play teaches important lessons without anyone getting hurt. Pack members often touch each other, nose rubbing, body pressing, lying in contact during rest periods. These touches maintain social bonds. They communicate belonging, affection, the comfort of pack connection. Wolves separated from their pack members seem to crave this physical contact when reunited, pressing close, touching faces, standing together rather than apart. There's also assertive body language that stops just short of aggression. A dominant wolf might place its chin across another wolf's back or shoulders. This physical reminder of hierarchy happens calmly, without violence, but the message is clear. The wolf underneath accepts the position, perhaps lowering its ears or tail slightly in acknowledgement. Sometimes a dominant wolf will stand over a subordinate one, not touching, just looming above. The physical positioning itself communicates rank. The subordinate wolf usually responds by lowering its body further, making the height difference even more obvious. These moments maintain pack order without requiring any actual conflict. When wolves walk together, their body language shows relationships. Dominant wolves often walk slightly ahead or to the side of subordinates. During pack travel, the breeding pair typically leads, their confident posture and high tails visible to all following behind. This isn't enforced through constant challenges, it's simply how the pack naturally arranges itself. During meals, body language becomes especially important. Higher-ranking wolves feed first, but they communicate their intentions through posture. A dominant wolf approaching a carcass holds its body high, moves deliberately. Subordinate wolves read this approach and move aside, waiting their turn. Sometimes a subordinate wolf tries to feed before its turn, and the dominant wolf responds with a stare, perhaps a step forward with stiffened legs. Usually that's enough. The subordinate wolf backs away, and tension dissolves without a fight. All of this communication happens smoothly, constantly, mostly without any sound at all. Wolves moving through their territory continuously signal each other. Small adjustments in ear position, slight changes in tail height, subtle shifts in posture. The pack flows together because everyone's reading everyone else's body language, making tiny adjustments, maintaining harmony through this wordless conversation. Young wolves learn this language by watching and practicing. Pups try out different positions, testing what responses they get from adults. They learn quickly that certain postures lead to calm acceptance, while others trigger corrections. By the time wolves mature, they're fluent in body language, able to communicate complex ideas through nothing more than how they hold themselves. The system works because it's visible to everyone in the pack. Unlike spoken language that only nearby individuals hear, body posture broadcasts to all who can see. A wolf across a clearing can read another wolf's intention through its silhouette alone. The height of the body, the position of the tail against the sky. No words needed, no sounds required, just pure, clear, visual communication that crosses distances silently. And at night, when darkness softens details, the communication continues through touch and scent and sound. But during daylight hours, body language carries most messages, the silent speech of wolves, written in postures and tail positions, in ear angles and facial expressions. A language thousands of years old, refined through countless generations, allowing complex social animals to live together in relative peace. Chapter 9. Two wolves move through morning mist. They walk close together, their shoulders nearly touching. When one pauses, the other waits. When one moves forward, the other follows. This synchronization isn't choreographed. It emerges naturally from years of being together, of knowing each other completely. Most wolves choose one partner and remain with that partner throughout their lives. The bond between mated wolves runs deep, sustained not by ceremony or promise, but by shared experience, mutual reliance, and something that looks remarkably like affection. Young wolves leave their birth packs around 2 or 3 years old. They wander alone or with siblings, searching for territory and opportunity. Eventually, two lone wolves encounter each other, perhaps at the boundary between territories, perhaps in unclaimed land, where both happen to be exploring. The courtship that follows is gentle. The wolves spend time together, walking side by side, hunting cooperatively, resting near each other. They touch noses, they groom each other's fur with careful attention. They play together, chasing and wrestling with the light-hearted energy that wolves usually reserve for pack members they trust completely. Gradually, the bond strengthens. The two wolves begin to move as a unit. They defend a territory together. They scent mark as a pair, sometimes urinating on the same spot one after the other, announcing their partnership to any wolf that might pass through. Their combined scent becomes a statement: we are together. This land is ours. When winter approaches and breeding season arrives, the bond deepens further. The female comes into estrus for just a few days each year, usually in late winter. During this brief window, the pair mates. Afterward, they remain close, often more affectionate than usual, touching frequently, sleeping pressed against each other. 63 days later, pups arrive. And here the true nature of the wolf-pair bond becomes visible. Both parents invest completely in raising their offspring. The mother stays with the pups constantly during their first weeks, nursing them, keeping them warm. The father hunts for the entire family, bringing food back to the den, standing guard while the mother rests. As pups grow older, both parents participate in feeding, teaching, protecting. They take turns watching over the young while the other hunts or patrols territory. They work together with a coordination that requires no discussion, each seeming to know instinctively what the other needs. This cooperation continues year after year if the pair remains intact. They raise multiple litters together, their partnership growing more efficient with experience. Older mated pairs often produce more surviving pups than younger pairs, benefiting from their accumulated knowledge of their territory, their prey, their methods of working together. The bond between wolf mates involves constant, quiet communication. They sleep close, together almost always. During rest periods, you'll find them touching, lying with bodies pressed together, heads resting on each other, one wolf's paw across the other's back. These touches aren't functional. They serve no survival purpose except perhaps the survival of the bond itself. Watch mated wolves greeting each other after a separation. tails wag vigorously. They press their bodies together, lick each other's faces, make soft whining sounds. The reunion displays genuine pleasure at being together again. This isn't anthropomorphism, this is observed behavior that appears consistently across wolf populations. The pair maintains their relationship through small gestures throughout each day. Mutual grooming occurs frequently. One wolf will carefully lick the other's ears, face, neck, areas the second wolf cannot easily reach itself. The groomed wolf closes its eyes, relaxing completely, trusting its partner entirely. Later, they switch positions and the groomer becomes the groomed. They share food readily with each other in ways they might not share with other pack members. A mated pair will often feed side by side, taking turns eating from a kill, showing none of the possessive guarding behavior that might appear between less closely bonded wolves. During travel, mated pairs often walk together rather than single file like other pack members might. They move at the same pace without needing to coordinate verbally. If one wolf detects something interesting, the other investigates too, almost automatically. Their lives intertwine so completely that separation becomes unusual. Death breaks these bonds, of course. When one member of a mated pair dies, the surviving wolf shows changes in behavior that researchers interpret as grief. The wolf may become quieter, less active. It might search for its missing partner, returning to places they frequented together, showing signs of distress. Eventually, most wolves who lose mates find new partners. Survival demands it. A lone wolf struggles to defend territory, to raise pups successfully. So the grieving wolf eventually accepts another partner and a new bond forms. But observers note that these replacement bonds often take longer to develop than original pairings, as if the wolf approaches the new relationship more cautiously. Not every wolf pair remains together permanently. Sometimes wolves separate, though researchers note this happens rarely. Incompatibility, infertility, or dramatic changes in pack dynamics might lead to separation. But these exceptions highlight how strong the typical bond is. Dissolution of a wolf-pair bond is newsworthy precisely because it's uncommon. The strength of pair bonds contributes directly to pack stability. When the breeding pair remains constant, their offspring grow up in a predictable social structure. The pups learn from watching their parents work together, seeing cooperation modeled daily. This observation shapes how the young wolves will eventually behave in their own relationships. Older pack members, often previous years' offspring who haven't yet dispersed, help raise new litters. They see their parents' partnership functioning smoothly season after season. They internalize these patterns. When they eventually leave to find their own mates, they carry this template of how mated wolves should treat each other. Some wolf packs contain multiple breeding pairs, particularly in areas where prey is abundant. Even in these situations, each pair maintains its distinct bond. The pairs don't merge into general group mating. They remain discrete partnerships within the larger pack structure. The breeding season itself requires remarkable coordination between mates. Females are fertile for such a brief window that timing becomes crucial. The mated pair often moves away from the pack during breeding season, seeking privacy. They spend several days together away from others, focused entirely on each other. After breeding season ends, the affectionate behavior between mates continues. This sets wolves apart from many species where pair bonds exist only during mating periods. Wolf pairs maintain close contact year-round, not just when reproduction is possible. During pup rearing season, the division of labor between mates becomes especially clear. While both parents participate in all tasks, they often specialize somewhat. One might excel at hunting while the other shows exceptional patience with teaching pups. They complement each other, their different strengths combining into effective cooperative parenting. As pups become juveniles and then young adults, they watch their parents' relationship constantly. They see how mated wolves communicate through glances and gestures. They observe how conflicts get resolved through subtle body language rather than overt aggression. They witness daily acts of cooperation and affection that make the pair bond tangible. The pair's relationship also provides stability during difficult times. When prey becomes scarce, when territory disputes arise, when pack members die or leave, through all of this, the mated pair remains constant. That stability anchors the entire pack, providing continuity even as other elements change. Old wolves who have been together for many years develop an almost seamless coordination. They anticipate each other's movements during hunts. They know each other's preferred resting spots, favored travel routes, typical responses to various situations. This deep familiarity makes them more effective as a team than they could ever be individually. Sometimes you can identify mated pairs even from a distance without seeing them interact. They're simply the two wolves who are always near each other. In a resting pack, they'll be side by side. During travel, they're together. When the pack spreads out to hunt, the pair works as a unit, coordinating their movements in ways that suggest years of practice. The bond between wolf mates represents one of nature's more successful partnership models. Not unique to wolves, several species form lasting pair bonds, but remarkable in its consistency and strength. Most wolves who find mates stay with those mates. Most mated pairs work together effectively. Most partnerships endure until death separates them. Late evening arrives. The mated pair rests together beneath an old pine, their bodies touching from shoulder to tail. One wolf's head rests on the other's back. They breathe in synchrony, completely relaxed, utterly comfortable with each other's presence. This scene will repeat tomorrow night and the night after, season after season, year after year. The simple, quiet constancy of wolves who have chosen each other and remained chosen. Chapter 10. A wolf walks through the forest and the forest changes, not immediately, not visibly, but slowly, quietly. The presence of wolves reshapes everything around them in ways that ripple outward like circles on still water. For many years, people didn't understand this. Wolves were simply predators. They hunted elk and deer, they lived in packs, they howled at night. That seemed to be the whole story, but the whole story was much larger, much more intricate than anyone realized. Scientists began noticing something curious in places where wolves disappeared. The forests changed, rivers changed course, plant communities shifted, even the behavior of other animals transformed. And when wolves returned to these places, everything shifted again, slowly returning to patterns that had existed before. Yellowstone National Park provided the clearest example. Wolves were eliminated from Yellowstone in the 1920s. For 70 years, the park existed without them. During those decades, elk populations grew enormous without wolves to limit their numbers. The elk browsed heavily on young trees, especially willows and aspens growing near streams. Year after year, the elk ate the tender shoots. The trees couldn't grow tall. Along many streams, willows that had once reached high above the water shrank to stubble. Aspens that should have formed groves remained scattered and stunted. The landscape began to look different, more open, less forested, simpler in its structure. Then in 1995, wolves returned. Wildlife managers reintroduced them to Yellowstone. The wolves established territories, formed packs, began hunting elk in the same valleys where elk had browsed unchallenged for decades. The elk didn't disappear. Wolves killed some, yes, but more importantly, they made the elk nervous. Elk that had grazed casually in valley bottoms began avoiding those areas. They spent less time in places where wolves could approach unseen. They moved more frequently, browsed less intensively in any single location, and the willows began to recover. Without constant browsing pressure, young willows grew taller. Some reached 6 feet, then 10 feet, then 15 feet. Within a decade, streams that had flowed through open meadows flowed once more through willow thickets. The change happened gradually, year by year, but eventually the transformation became unmistakable. Aspens recovered too. New groves appeared in areas where elk had previously prevented any growth. The trees grew tall enough that elk could no longer reach the upper branches. The groves expanded. Within 20 years, parts of Yellowstone looked dramatically different than they had during the wolf-free decades. These changes affected more than just trees. Birds that nest in willows returned to streams where willows now grew tall. Beavers, which depend on willows for food, and dam-building material recolonized streams they'd abandoned during the wolf-free period. The beaver dams created ponds. The ponds provided habitat for fish, amphibians, waterfowl. Riverbanks stabilized where willows grew thick. The willow roots held soil that had been eroding for decades. Streams that had been widening and becoming shallower began narrowing and deepening. The shape of the rivers themselves changed because wolves had returned and elk had become more cautious. This cascade of effects, predator affecting prey, affecting plants, affecting other animals, affecting water itself, became known as a trophic cascade. The term sounds technical, but the concept is simple. Change at the top of the food chain ripples downward through every level below. Wolves don't consciously engineer these changes, they simply hunt, living as wolves have always lived. But their presence shifts the behavior of prey animals, which shifts the landscape, which shifts conditions for countless other species. The wolves become architects without intending to, shaping their environment through the simple fact of their existence. Other predators don't create quite the same effects. Bears, cougars, coyotes, all of these hunt elk and deer, but wolves hunt differently. They hunt in packs, they hunt more systematically across larger territories. Prey animals respond to wolves with specific behaviors, clustering in defensive herds, avoiding certain areas completely, changing their movement patterns in ways they don't change for other predators. These specific responses create specific landscape effects. The landscape of fear that wolves generate, areas where prey animals feel vulnerable and therefore spend less time, allows vegetation to recover in those exact locations. Valley bottoms with dense cover becomes safer from wolves but riskier from other predators. Open hillsides become riskier from wolves but safer from ambush predators. Prey animals navigate this complex map of risk, and their navigation decisions determine where plants can grow and where they'll be constantly browsed. Scavengers benefit from wolf presence in direct ways. When wolves make a kill, they consume much of it, but they rarely eat everything. Ravens arrive first, often before the wolves finish feeding. Then eagles, magpies, crows. Bears visit wolf kills, especially in spring when they emerge from hibernation and need food quickly. Coyotes and foxes scavenge from wolf kills, though they must wait until the wolves leave to avoid confrontation. In winter, this scavenging becomes especially important. A single elk killed by wolves might feed 24 species over the course of a week. Each scavenger takes what it needs, and the nutrients from that one elk distribute widely through the ecosystem. Without wolves making these kills, many scavengers would struggle more during winter's scarcest months. The relationship between wolves and ravens appears particularly close. Ravens often follow wolf packs, waiting for hunting opportunities. They call to each other when they find a wolf kill, gathering in large numbers to feed. Some researchers suggest ravens might even guide wolves to prey by flying overhead and calling, though this remains difficult to prove. Regardless, the two species clearly benefit from each other's presence. Wolves also affect smaller predators through competition. Coyote populations typically decline when wolves establish territories. Wolves kill coyotes that venture too close to their kills or dens. The surviving coyotes become more cautious, changing their behavior and habitat use to avoid wolves. This release from coyote pressure benefits small mammals, mice, voles, ground squirrels, which in turn provides more prey for foxes, hawks, owls. Even soil benefits from wolf presence. When scavengers scatter remains from wolf kills, they distribute nutrients across the landscape. Bones decompose slowly, releasing calcium and phosphorus over months or years. The enriched soil supports more vigorous plant growth, which feeds insects, which feed birds, and so the cascade continues in directions too numerous to track completely. Streamside zones show the clearest changes because they're where multiple effects overlap. Wolves push elk away from streamsides, willows recover, beaver dams create ponds, pond edges grow thick vegetation. The vegetation shades the water, keeping it cooler for fish. The ponds trap sediment, clarifying the water downstream. Each effect builds on previous effects, and the cumulative change transforms the entire riparian corridor. Scientists measured these changes carefully over decades, documenting them with photographs, vegetation surveys, wildlife counts. The before and after comparisons became famous because they demonstrated so clearly how one species, wolves, could influence entire landscapes through chains of indirect effects that nobody had anticipated. This understanding changed how we think about ecosystems. Species don't exist in isolation. They're woven into networks of relationships where each species affects many others, often in unexpected ways. Remove one species and the network reorganizes, sometimes in ways that diminish its overall health and complexity. Restore that species and the network reorganizes again, often recovering lost functions and structures. Wolves aren't unique in having these far-reaching effects. Many top predators play similar roles. Sharks in oceans, big cats in grasslands, crocodiles in wetlands. But wolves became the most thoroughly studied example because their removal and return happened in places where scientists could document everything carefully. The lesson extends beyond wolves, specifically to conservation generally. Protecting individual species matters, yes, but protecting the relationships between species matters just as much. An ecosystem without its apex predators functions differently than one where predators remain present. Not better or worse necessarily, but differently, with different winners and losers, different structures and processes. Yellowstone's transformation after wolf reintroduction happened slowly. If you visited the park in 2000 and looked again in 2010, you might not notice much difference. But compare 2000 to 2020, and the changes become obvious. Willow thickets where none existed before, beaver ponds creating landscape complexity, more diverse bird communities, healthier streamside vegetation. The wolves simply lived as wolves. They hunted, they raised pups, they defended territories. They did nothing unusual or exceptional, but their presence, sustained over decades, allowed the ecosystem to reorganize around them. The forest shaped itself around the existence of wolves as forests had done for thousands of years before people removed the wolves and broke those ancient patterns. Now, with wolves back, the patterns re-establish themselves. Not perfectly, the landscape has changed in other ways that can't be reversed, but recognizably, Yellowstone becomes more like it was, more like it could be, more like it evolved to be over millennia, when wolves were always present. Night settles across the park. Somewhere in a valley, wolves rest after a hunt. Tomorrow they'll move through their territory again, following paths worn by generations before them. And as they move, the forest shapes itself around their presence. Trees grow where elk now fear to browse. Water flows through channels stabilized by recovered vegetation. Birds nest in willow thickets. Everything connects to everything else, and the wolves stand at the center of these connections, holding the whole intricate web together through the simple fact of their existence. The cascade continues, silent, steady, reshaping the world one season at a time. The forest grows quiet as darkness deepens. Somewhere among the trees, a wolf pack settles into rest. They've traveled their territory today, following the same paths they've followed for seasons. They've hunted, though not every hunt succeeds. They've marked boundaries, reinforced bonds, simply existed as wolves have existed for thousands of generations. We've followed these wolves through their year, watching how they move through changing seasons, how they communicate without words, how they raise their young with patience we rarely see in the wild. We've seen their tracks pressed into snow and mud, evidence of journeys that continue whether anyone watches or not. We've observed their quiet partnerships, bonds that endure year after year with simple constancy. Wolves live without drama most of the time. They sleep, they travel, they eat when food is available and fast when it's not. They touch noses with pack members, lie close together during cold nights, and greet each other after brief separations with genuine warmth. The extraordinary thing about wolves is how ordinary most of their lives actually are. But within that ordinariness lies something remarkable. These animals maintain complex social structures without written rules. They communicate through subtle gestures that convey everything necessary. they cooperate in ways that benefit the entire group rather than just individuals. They shape entire ecosystems simply by being present within them. The wolf navigates its world through scent rather than sight, experiencing reality in ways we can barely imagine. It reads stories written in urine marks and footprints, understands messages carried on wind currents, knows its packmates by smell alone in complete darkness. This is a different kind of intelligence than ours, no less sophisticated, simply oriented toward different priorities. Through all the seasons, through territory changes and pack restructuring, through births and deaths and the endless cycle of years, wolves persist. They adapt when they must, but maintain patterns refined over evolutionary time. They don't struggle against their nature, but live fully within it, comfortable with who and what they are. As night settles completely over wolf country, the pack rests together. Tomorrow will bring new travels, new challenges, new moments of connection between pack members. But tonight there is only rest, the comfort of familiar companions nearby, and the deep peace that comes from living exactly as one is meant to live.